There existed a particular cruelty in being invisible by design rather than circumstance. Not the comfortable invisibility of shadows or crowds, but the systematic erasure that came from lacking the one thing that defined your worth in a world built on scent and hierarchy. For Sera Moonwhisper, that absence had shaped 23 years of existence into a study in survival through strategic insignificance. The Raven's Hollow Tavern smelled of smoke, spilled ale, and the thick musk of dominant alphas marking territory they did not own. Sera stood in the corner farthest from the roaring fireplace, hands clasped before her, eyes downcast in the posture every Omega learned before they could walk. Not that she was truly Omega, though no one knew that. Without a scent, she was nothing. A biological impossibility. A broken thing that defied the natural order where every wolf could be identified, categorized, and valued according to the pheromones that announced their designation to the world. Pack Alpha Garrett. Moonwhisper sat at the center table, his bulk spilling over the chair's edges, sweat gleaming on his florid face despite the winter cold seeping through the tavern's walls. He was not her father, though he had claimed guardianship after her parents died. Uncle, he insisted she call him, though there was no blood between them. Just convenience. Just the legal fiction that prevented a child from being cast out to die alone when her pack was slaughtered 18 years ago. Slaughtered. Such a clean word for what had happened. The Serpent Purge, history called it. The necessary elimination of dangerous bloodlines that threatened the stability of the realm. Sera had been 5 years old, small enough to hide in spaces where soldiers did not think to look, young enough that her memories came in fragments. Screaming. Fire. Her mother's face, beautiful even in terror, mouthing words Sera could not hear over the chaos. And then darkness. Silence. Waking in Garrett's wagon, being told she was the last, the only survivor. A charity case he had graciously agreed to raise. The charity had run out 3 hours ago when Garrett's final hand of cards revealed itself to be catastrophically insufficient. Duke Aldous Thornwood laughed, the sound carrying the cruel edge of a man who enjoyed watching others squirm. He was 50 if he was a day, his alpha scent thick with aged leather and tobacco, the kind of dominant presence that made weaker wolves bow their heads in automatic submission. Beside him sat Baron Christoph Ravenmere, younger and hungrier, his scent sharper, more aggressive. The third player, Lady Evelyn Ashcroft, was rare among their kind, a female alpha whose scent carried notes of steel and blood oranges. She studied her cards with the detached interest of someone who had already calculated every possible outcome. And then there was him, Alpha King. Caspian Nightshade did not sit at the table. He stood behind it, one hand resting on the chair back, his posture suggesting he had simply paused in passing rather than deliberately attended this particular game in this particular tavern. But Sera knew better. Everyone knew better. Alpha Kings did not simply wander into gambling dens on the kingdom's edge. They arrived with purpose, even if that purpose remained hidden behind expressions of polished stone. He was tall, easily 6'4", with the kind of presence that made rooms feel smaller. Black hair fell to his shoulders, perfectly straight, perfectly maintained. His eyes were silver, not the pale gray of common wolves, but true metallic silver that caught lamplight and reflected it back with unsettling intensity. His face could have been carved from marble for all the emotion it displayed, beautiful in the way that dangerous things were beautiful. Predatory grace wrapped in expensive black clothing that probably cost more than Garrett's entire pack had earned in the past year. His scent, though. His scent was what made Sera's breath catch in her throat every time the wind shifted in his direction. Winter pine and lightning, crisp and clean and so utterly controlled it seemed barely there at all. An alpha who had mastered every aspect of his nature, including the unconscious projection of pheromones that most of their kind wielded like weapons. Caspian Nightshade's scent whispered where others roared, and somehow that made it more terrifying. "I have no more coin," Garrett said, his voice carrying the desperation of a man watching his life collapse in real time. "No more land, no more resources to pledge against the debt." "Then you have nothing," Duke Thornwood replied with satisfaction. which means by the terms of our agreement, your territory reverts to the crown. Your pack is dissolved. You and yours are declared rogue, subject to execution if you remain within kingdom borders past the next full moon. 3 days. Garrett had gambled away not just his own life, but the lives of everyone who called his territory home. 47 wolves, from elderly pack members to nursing pups, would be forced into exile or face death. All because one man could not stop doubling his bets when fortune turned against him. Sera felt nothing at this revelation. She had learned long ago that feeling things changed nothing. Garrett had beaten compassion out of her by the time she was 8. Better to be empty. Better to be nothing. The broken Omega with no scent had no value to lose. "Wait!" Garrett's hand shot out, grabbing Duke Thornwood's wrist. "I have one more asset, one more thing to wager." The Duke raised an eyebrow. "Unless you have a vault of gold hidden somewhere, I cannot imagine what you possess that would interest me." "Her," Garrett pointed at Sera. Every head in the tavern turned. Sera kept her gaze fixed on the floor, but she could feel their eyes crawling over her skin, assessing, judging, finding her lacking as they always did. "The girl!" Baron Ravenmere leaned forward, squinting through the dim light. "The scentless one? Garrett, even you cannot be desperate enough to offer a broken Omega as collateral. She has no value. No Alpha would want her. No pack would accept her. She is a biological dead end. Nevertheless, she exists," Garrett insisted. "She is young, undamaged, obedient. Someone might find use for her as a servant, manual labor, something." "This is beneath us," Lady Ashcroft said, though her tone carried more boredom than moral outrage. "Even as a curiosity, a scentless wolf is worthless. You might as well offer us a chair. At least furniture has practical application." Sera absorbed these assessments with the practiced numbness of someone who had heard variations of them her entire conscious life. Worthless, broken, dead end. The words had lost their sting years ago, worn smooth by repetition, until they were simply facts. The sky was blue. Water was wet. Sera Moonwhisper had no value. "I will accept the wager." The voice cut through the discussion like a blade through silk. Cold, precise, utterly emotionless. Alpha King. Caspian Nightshade moved for the first time since the game began, stepping away from the wall to approach the table. His movements were fluid, controlled, each step deliberate. He did not rush. He did not need to. The authority in his presence made everyone else in the room seem like children playing at importance. "Your Majesty!" Duke Thornwood rose hastily, bowing his head in automatic deference. "Surely you cannot be serious. A scentless Omega is beneath your notice, beneath your dignity. This man insults you by suggesting such a trade. And yet I accept." Caspian's silver eyes fixed on Garrett with the intensity of a predator selecting prey. "The girl. Against full forgiveness of all debts, restoration of your territory, and a royal pardon for you and your pack." Sera's head snapped up despite her training. That was too generous. Impossibly generous. Garrett had lost everything. Caspian could have taken it all, dissolved the pack, claimed the land for the crown. Instead, he was offering complete restoration in exchange for something everyone agreed was worthless. Why? Garrett's face cycled through confusion, suspicion, and finally desperate gratitude. "You would do this? For her?" "I would." Caspian pulled a deck of cards from inside his coat, shuffling them with practiced ease. "One hand. If I win, the girl comes with me tonight, and all your debts are forgiven. If you win, you keep both the girl and your freedom from obligation. Do you accept these terms?" It was the safest bet Garrett would get all night. Even if he lost, he gained everything except Sera. And Sera, by his calculations, was nothing. "I accept," Garrett said quickly before Caspian could reconsider. They played. Sera watched, despite knowing she should keep her eyes down. Caspian's hands moved with elegant efficiency, dealing cards, arranging them, his expression never changing. Garrett sweated and fidgeted, his sense spiking with anxiety that made Sera's nose wrinkle. The final reveal came quickly. Garrett laid down 3 kings with obvious pride, a strong hand, better than anything he had shown all night. Caspian arranged his cards face up on the table without ceremony. 7 serpents. Each card depicted a different serpent wrapped around a crown, their scales rendered in silver ink that caught the firelight. It was a perfect hand, the rarest combination in the deck. The kind of draw that happened once in 1,000 games, or the kind that happened when someone was very, very good at manipulating outcomes. "I believe that makes her mine," Caspian said. The words sent ice down Sera's spine. Mine. Possession. She had always belonged to someone, passed from her dead parents to Garrett, existing at the mercy of whoever claimed guardianship. But somehow being claimed by the Alpha King felt different, more final, more dangerous. Caspian stood, gesturing toward Sera. "Come here." It was not a request. Alphas did not make requests of Omegas, even broken ones. Sera moved on instinct, crossing the tavern floor on legs that felt disconnected from her body. Up close, Caspian was even more imposing. She had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, though she immediately dropped her gaze again. Looking directly at an alpha, especially one of his rank, was an insult. "Look at me," he commanded. She obeyed, lifting her chin, meeting those silver eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone to something deeper, something she had spent 18 years hiding. His hand moved, and Sera forced herself not to flinch. But he did not strike her. Instead, his fingers caught her chin, tilting her face from side to side as if examining a horse he was considering purchasing. His touch was surprisingly gentle, clinical. His skin was warm against hers, and at the point of contact, something strange happened. A shock. Not painful, but present. Like static electricity, but deeper, more fundamental. It raced from the point where his fingers touched her jaw, down her throat, spreading through her chest in waves that made her heart stutter. And beneath her skin, something that had been sleeping for 18 years stirred. The seal. She had always known it was there, though she barely remembered its placement. Her mother's face, streaked with tears and blood, hands glowing with desperate magic, words in a language Sera did not understand. Then pain, blinding, all-consuming pain, as something vital was locked away behind barriers of power. When Sera woke, she had no scent, no designation, no identity in a world where those things defined existence itself. The seal had never reacted before, not in 18 years. But now, under Caspian's touch, it burned. Sera gasped, jerking back. Caspian's hand fell away, but his eyes widened fractionally, the first genuine emotion she had seen cross his face. Surprise, recognition, something that looked almost like shock before his expression smoothed back into neutrality. "Interesting," he murmured, so quietly that perhaps only Sera heard. He turned back to Garrett, who was already gathering the royal pardon that had been drawn up and signed with efficiency that suggested Caspian had prepared for this outcome. "Our business is concluded. The girl leaves with me tonight. You and your pack are free of obligation. Do not make me regret my generosity." "No, Your Majesty. Never. Thank you. Thank you." Garrett bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the table. He did not spare Sera a single glance. She had served her purpose. She was someone else's problem now. Caspian placed a hand on Sera's shoulder, steering her toward the door. His touch was light, but implacable. She could no more resist it than she could stop the tide. Behind them, the tavern erupted in whispered speculation, voices rising as soon as the door closed behind them. Outside, the winter night was bitter. Snow fell in thick curtains, already accumulating on the cobblestones. A carriage waited, black lacquer and silver fittings, pulled by 4 massive horses whose breath steamed in the cold. A woman stood beside it, tall and muscular, wearing armor marked with the royal insignia. Her scent carried the sharp clarity of a dominant alpha female. "This is her?" The woman's voice was skeptical. "The one you have been searching for?" "Yes, Elena." Caspian opened the carriage door himself, rather than waiting for assistance. "See that we are not disturbed during the journey back to the capital." Elena's eyes narrowed, studying Sera with an intensity that made her skin prickle, but she nodded, stepping back. "As you command, Your Majesty." Caspian gestured for Sera to enter the carriage. She climbed in, the leather seats soft beneath her, the interior warm from heated stones placed on the floor. Caspian followed, settling across from her, his long legs stretched out, taking up space with the unconscious entitlement of someone who had never been made to feel small. The carriage lurched into motion. Sera gripped the seat edge, staring at her hands, small, pale, scarred on the knuckles from years of manual labor, the hands of someone who had never mattered. "You have questions," Caspian said. Not a question himself, a statement of fact. Sera kept her eyes down. "It is not my place to question my alpha. I am not your alpha. Not in the way you mean." He leaned forward, elbows on knees, and that scent, winter pine and lightning, intensified slightly. "I am your king, which is both more and less than Pack Alpha, and I am telling you that you may speak freely in my presence, at least for tonight. After that, I make no promises." She did not believe him. Freedom of speech was a trap, a test. Say the wrong thing and face consequences. But she also could not ignore a direct command from the Alpha King, so she chose her words carefully. "Why?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why would you trade so much for something worthless?" "Because you are not worthless." His tone was flat, brooking no argument. "You are the most valuable thing in this kingdom. You simply do not know it yet." Sera's head snapped up despite herself. "I have no scent, no designation. I am broken. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows what they have been allowed to see." Caspian reached inside his coat, pulling out a small object wrapped in black silk. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a necklace, silver chain, holding a pendant carved from what looked like serpentine stone. 7 serpents coiled around a crown, their bodies intertwining in complex patterns. The same symbol from the cards. Sera's breath caught. She knew that necklace, had seen it in dreams and fragmented memories, around her mother's neck on the day everything ended. "This belonged to my mother," she whispered. "It belonged to the Serpent Queen," Caspian corrected. "Your mother, Sera Moonwhisper, who was the last crowned sovereign of the serpent bloodlines before they were systematically eliminated 18 years ago. And you, Sera, are her daughter, her heir, the princess of a dead dynasty." The words made no sense. Sera shook her head. "No, I am no one, an orphan, a broken Omega. You are mistaken." "I am not mistaken. I know exactly who you are because I was there the night your parents died. I was the one holding the sword." Caspian's voice remained emotionless, but his hand tightened on the necklace. "I was 14 years old. My father put a blade in my hand and told me to execute the serpent prisoners, or he would kill me and find another heir who would obey. So I did. I cut down your father first, then your mother. I have dreamed of their faces every night for 15 years. Sera felt the world tilt. The man sitting across from her, this beautiful, cold, powerful Alpha King, had murdered her parents, had taken everything from her, and now he owned her. "Why tell me this?" Her voice shook despite her attempts at control. "Why bring me here? Why not just kill me too and finish what you started?" "Because your mother cursed me before she died." Caspian unbuttoned his shirt collar, pulling the fabric aside to reveal his throat and upper chest. A scar marked his skin, raised and twisted, in the unmistakable shape of a serpent coiled around his heart. She said, "You will love what you destroyed. You will search for what you stole, and when you find her, you will beg for what you can never have." Then she released the last of her magic and burned this into my flesh. I have carried it ever since, a reminder, a punishment, a promise. He leaned back, rebuttoning his shirt. "For 15 years, I have searched for any sign of the Serpent Princess. I thought you died in the fires. Most children did. But 2 years ago, a member of my intelligence network reported rumors of a scentless Omega in the Moonwhisper pack. A girl found in the aftermath of the purge, too young to remember clearly, raised by a man who claimed guardianship but kept her isolated. It took me 18 months to confirm your identity, another 6 to engineer circumstances where I could claim you legally without raising suspicions." "Suspicions about what?" "About why the Alpha King would want a broken Omega." Caspian's eyes fixed on hers with predatory intensity. "The official story is that I collect curiosities, unique things, and you are certainly unique, but the truth is that you are not broken. You are sealed. Your mother used the last of her magic to hide what you are, to protect you from those who would kill you for your bloodline, and that seal, Sera, is beginning to crack." As if in response to his words, the burning sensation beneath her skin intensified. Sera pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat racing, feeling something else rising up from depths she had not known existed. Power, raw and ancient and utterly foreign. "What am I?" she asked. Caspian smiled for the first time. It was not a kind expression. "You are the thing my enemies fear most. You are the thing I have been searching for since I was old enough to understand what my father made me do. You are the key to undoing 15 years of atrocity." He leaned forward again, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "You are not an Omega, Sera. You are an Alpha, a Serpent Alpha. And when that seal breaks completely, you are going to burn this kingdom to ashes unless I can teach you to control it first." The carriage hit a rut in the road. Sera grabbed for support, her hand landing on Caspian's knee. The contact sent another shock through her system, stronger this time. The seal cracked audibly in her mind, like ice breaking on a frozen lake. Power flooded through the fractures, and for one terrifying moment, Sera felt something massive and ancient and utterly inhuman uncoiling inside her chest. Her eyes, she knew without seeing, had turned gold. Pure metallic gold with vertical slits. Serpent eyes. The eyes that had been hidden behind the seal for 18 years. Caspian caught her wrist, his grip firm but not painful. "Breathe. Control it. Push it back down. You are not ready yet." "I cannot." Her voice sounded wrong, layered, as if something else spoke beneath her words. "It is too strong." "You can. You are stronger than you know." He pulled her forward, pressing her forehead against his shoulder, one hand cupping the back of her head. His scent intensified, wrapping around her like a physical thing, and somehow that helped. The foreign power recognized his scent, responded to it, calmed fractionally. Sera breathed in winter pine and lightning, focused on the solid warmth of his body, and pushed. The power retreated. Not gone, but contained again. The gold faded from her eyes. The seal reformed, though she could feel it was weaker now, more fragile. She pulled back, looking up at Caspian. His face was too close. She could see silver flecks in his irises, could feel his breath against her skin, could sense something in him responding to something in her with an intensity that had nothing to do with logic or choice. "What was that?" she whispered. "That," he said quietly, "was your true nature trying to surface. And this," he touched the scar on his chest, the serpent mark. "This is burning. It has not burned in 15 years, not until I touched you in that tavern." "Why?" "Because your mother's curse was not just punishment." Caspian released her, putting distance between them again, though his eyes remained fixed on hers. "It was a prophecy, and prophecies have a way of coming true whether we want them to or not." The carriage continued through the snow-covered night, carrying them toward the capital, toward a palace Sera had never seen, toward a future she could not begin to imagine. And inside her chest, beneath fragile seals and desperate magic, something that had been sleeping for 18 years continued to wake. The journey took 3 days. They stopped at inns along the route, though Caspian always secured separate rooms and never tried to approach Sera beyond what was necessary for maintaining appearances. Elena, who Sera learned was head of the royal guard, treated her with distant curiosity rather than the contempt Sera had expected. Other guards in their company kept their distance, though Sera caught them staring when they thought she did not notice. On the second night, Elena knocked on Sera's door after sunset. "His Majesty is otherwise occupied," the Alpha woman said, her tone neutral. "I thought you might appreciate company that does not involve political maneuvering or existential revelations." Sera, who had been sitting on the bed staring at her hands, nodded. Elena entered, carrying a tray with tea and small cakes. She set it on the small table near the window, then stood awkwardly, as if uncertain how to proceed now that she was here. "You knew my mother," Sera said. It was not a question. Elena's reaction in the carriage had made that clear. "Yes." Elena poured tea, her movements precise. "I was part of the royal guard even then. Your mother, the queen, she was kind to me when others were not. Female alphas are rare. We make people uncomfortable, challenge their assumptions about how the world should work. But Queen Seraphine never treated me as an anomaly, just as a person." "You were there," Sera's throat tightened. "The night of the purge." "I was." Elena's jaw clenched. "I was ordered to hold the perimeter, to ensure no one escaped. I did my duty. I have regretted it every day since." "Then why do you still serve the king who ordered it? Why stay loyal to the crown?" "Because Caspian was a child." Elena met her eyes. He was 14, terrified. His father held a knife to his throat and told him to choose, die or obey. Most 14-year-old boys would have chosen to live. I cannot fault him for that, even as I mourn what that choice cost." She paused. "And because he has spent 15 years trying to make it right, trying to find you, trying to undo what his father built. The old king is dead now, has been for 5 years. Caspian rules with a different philosophy, not perfect, not bloodless, but better." Sera absorbed this. "He told me I am sealed, that I am an alpha." "You are." Elena sipped her tea. "I could smell it even through the suppression, faintly. Your bloodline is strong, apex level probably. When the seal breaks completely, you will be one of the most powerful alphas in the kingdom, possibly more powerful than Caspian himself." "That is impossible." "Why? Because you have been told your entire life that you are worthless?" Elena's tone was sharp. "Sera, the most effective way to control someone is to make them believe they have no power. Garrett kept you isolated, kept you convinced you were broken. But he was lying. Or perhaps he believed it himself because that is what he needed to believe. If he had admitted what you truly were, he would have had to report you, would have had to turn you over to be executed. So instead, he made you invisible." "The seal will break," Sera said quietly. "Caspian said so." "Yes, probably soon. The more time you spend around him, the faster it will deteriorate." "Why? What is he to me?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I think you already know the answer to that question. You just do not want to accept it yet." But Sera did not know. Or if she did, the knowledge remained buried beneath years of conditioning that told her she could never be anything other than worthless. They reached the capital on the third day as the sun was setting. Nightshade Palace rose from the city center like a mountain of black stone and silver spires, Gothic architecture that spoke of age and power and secrets kept in darkness. Sera pressed her face to the carriage window, staring up at towers that seemed to pierce the sky. "It is meant to intimidate," Caspian said. He had been reading reports for most of the day, barely speaking. "My grandfather believed fear was the foundation of loyalty. My father agreed. I am not certain I disagree, though I wish I could." "What would you prefer?" Sera asked. "If you could build loyalty on something other than fear? Respect, perhaps, or mutual benefit, or simply the acknowledgement that we are all trapped in systems we did not create and must navigate them as best we can." He set aside his papers, looking at her directly. "But those things require honesty, trust, and I have found that people prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths." "Is that what you are offering me? Uncomfortable truths?" "Yes, though I suspect you will wish I had left you in comfortable ignorance before this is finished." The carriage passed through the palace gates. Guards snapped to attention, their armor gleaming in torchlight. Sera caught glimpses of their faces, curious, assessing, wondering what broken Omega the Alpha King had brought home and why. Inside the palace proper, a steward waited. Male Beta, middle-aged, his expression carefully neutral. "Your Majesty, welcome home. The Queen Dowager wishes to speak with you at your earliest convenience." Caspian's expression darkened fractionally. "Tell my mother I will attend her after I have seen my guest settled." "Of course, Your Majesty." The steward's eyes flicked to Sera, then away. "The Omega quarters have been prepared as requested." "No." Caspian's tone was flat. "She stays in the guest wing, scholars section. She will require access to the royal archives and library." Surprise flickered across the steward's face. "Your Majesty, the Omega quarters are more appropriate for—" "I did not ask for your opinion on appropriate accommodations." Ice entered Caspian's voice. "She is not a servant. She is a guest. Treat her accordingly or find new employment." The steward bowed. "As you command, Your Majesty." They proceeded through corridors of polished stone and expensive tapestries. Sera felt overwhelmingly small, a creature of poverty and neglect, suddenly transplanted into opulence beyond imagination. Every surface gleamed. Every corner was occupied by art or sculpture or some other declaration of wealth. And through it all, wolves in fine clothing moved with the casual arrogance of those who had never questioned their place in the world. Several Omegas passed them in the halls, their scent sweet and submissive, their eyes downcast. They all possessed the proper markers of their designation. All belonged, all fit. Sera had never felt more broken than she did, surrounded by proof of what she should have been and was not. Her quarters were generous. Bedroom with attached sitting room, both larger than the entire cottage she had shared with Garrett. Windows overlooked a snow-covered garden, fireplace already burning, bed that could have slept 4 people comfortably, wardrobe filled with clothing in her size, though she had no idea how they had known her measurements. "You will dine privately tonight," Caspian said from the doorway. "Tomorrow, I will begin your education on serpent history and the political situation you are walking into. The day after, you will meet my mother. I apologize in advance for that encounter." "Why? What is she like?" "Ambitious, cunning, utterly ruthless when it comes to protecting what she believes is rightfully hers." He paused. "She orchestrated the serpent purge. My father ordered it, but she provided the intelligence and planning. If she learns what you truly are before you are ready to defend yourself, she will kill you." The casual delivery of that threat made it somehow worse. "Then why tell her I am here at all? Why not hide me?" "Because hiding suggests guilt, suggests I have something to protect. Better to present you openly as a curiosity, a broken omega I acquired on a whim. She will dismiss you as insignificant. That buys us time." He moved as if to leave, then stopped. "The mark on my chest has not stopped burning since I touched you. Your mother's curse is accelerating. The seal will not last much longer. Days, perhaps only hours. When it breaks, it will be violent, possibly destructive. Try not to level the palace." He left before Sera could respond. The door closed with a soft click, and Sera stood alone in a room more luxurious than anything she had imagined, wondering how her life had transformed so completely in 3 days. She did not sleep that night. Instead, she sat by the fire, staring at flames that danced in patterns that almost seemed intentional, and beneath her skin, the seal continued to crack. Power leaked through the fractures in whispers and promises. Soon, it seemed to say, soon you will remember what you are, what you were meant to become, and then nothing will ever be the same. Morning came too quickly. A servant brought breakfast, a beta woman who set the tray down and fled before Sera could speak. Apparently word had spread that the Alpha King kept a scentless omega in the guest wing. Sera imagined the gossip, the speculation, the mockery. Caspian arrived shortly after breakfast, carrying an armful of books. "We begin with history. You need context for what was done and why." He set the books on the table. The serpent bloodlines were not one people, but 7 distinct family groups, each with their own territory and traditions. They were called serpents because of their magic's nature: mind-reading, prophetic visions, the ability to influence thoughts and emotions, powers that made other alphas deeply uncomfortable. Why? If they were so powerful, why did anyone dare move against them? Because power that cannot be predicted or controlled is terrifying. Caspian opened the first book, revealing hand-drawn illustrations of serpents coiled around crowns. And because my grandfather was a paranoid tyrant who saw threats in every shadow, when a serpent seer prophesied his line would fall, he decided to eliminate the prophets rather than change his behavior. The purge took 3 years. It was thorough. Sera studied the illustrations. 7 families, 7 serpents, all destroyed. But I survived. You survived because your mother was clever and desperate. The seal she placed on you was a masterwork of magic that should not have been possible. It suppressed not just your scent and power, but your very designation, made you appear to be nothing so that no one would look twice. He met her eyes. She died giving you that protection. You killed her. Yes. No hesitation, no justification, just acknowledgement. They spent the morning with books. Sera read about her heritage, about powers she had never accessed, about a history that had been systematically erased. By midday, her head ached with information. Her chest ached with something else. Grief for parents she barely remembered, rage at the injustice, fear of what would happen when the seal broke. "I need to show you something," Caspian said, as the afternoon stretched toward evening. He led her through the palace to a section she had not yet seen. Guards stood at attention, but did not follow. Eventually they reached a door marked with serpent symbols. "The royal archives," Caspian explained. "Restricted access. Only the king and those he specifically authorizes may enter." He opened the door, revealing a vast room of shelves stretching into shadows. "Everything we know about the serpent bloodlines is here, including documents my grandfather tried to destroy, including prophecies, including the one your mother spoke before she died." He led her to a specific shelf, pulled out a leather-bound journal. This belonged to the royal historian who witnessed the executions. He was required to record everything for posterity. I found it 3 years ago. I have read it exactly once. I have not been able to bring myself to read it again." He handed her the journal. Sera opened it to a marked page. The handwriting was neat, precise, documenting atrocity with clinical detachment. Date, time, location, names of those executed, cause of death. And there, near the end, Queen Seraphine Moonwhisper, executed by sword. Final words recorded as follows: "You will love what you destroyed. You will search for what you stole. And when you find her, you will beg for what you can never have. The Serpent Queen's daughter will either save your soul or consume it. The choice will be hers, not yours." Then in parentheses, subject released final magical attack before expiring. Crown Prince Caspian bore the mark. Nature of curse unknown. Sera read it 3 times. Each time, the words hurt more. Her mother's final moments, her final magic, her final attempt to protect her daughter by ensuring the boy who killed her would someday seek that daughter out. "She cursed you to find me," Sera whispered. "Yes. Not because she forgave you, because she wanted you tormented." "Probably." Caspian's tone remained neutral, though the prophecy suggests she left room for redemption. "Save your soul or consume it. The choice is yours. That implies I might yet be saved if you choose it." "And if I choose to consume you instead? To take revenge for my parents?" "That is your right." He said it simply, factually. "I will not stop you. I owe you that much at least." Sera stared at him, searching for deception or manipulation, but his expression revealed nothing. He meant it. Would let her destroy him if that was her choice. The knowledge should have been satisfying. Instead, it felt hollow. "I do not know what I want," she admitted. "Then we have that in common." The Queen Dowager received Sera 3 days after her arrival at Nightshade Palace. 3 days that Sera spent immersed in archives and ancient texts, learning the shape of her stolen heritage, while the seal beneath her skin continued its slow deterioration. Each morning she woke to find the burning sensation had intensified. Each night she dreamed of serpents and crowns, and a woman with violet eyes who sang lullabies in a language Sera's conscious mind did not remember, but her soul recognized. The summons came via the same beta steward who had greeted them upon arrival. His expression suggested he pitied her. That should have been warning enough. "The Queen Dowager does not tolerate tardiness," he said, leading Sera through corridors that grew progressively more opulent. "Address her as Your Majesty. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not make eye contact unless invited. And whatever you do, do not mention the king's interest in you. She considers such things beneath her notice." Sera, who had survived 18 years of Garrett's casual cruelty, understood the subtext. Morgana Nightshade was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical strength. Political predators were often more lethal than the biological kind. The Queen Dowager's receiving room was a study in controlled elegance. Pale blue walls adorned with silver filigree, furniture that managed to be both delicate and imposing, windows that overlooked the palace gardens, currently buried under fresh snow. And in the center of it all, seated on a chair that was not quite a throne but suggested one, was Morgana herself. She was beautiful. Sera had expected that. Alphas generally were, their genetics favoring aesthetics alongside strength. But Morgana's beauty carried an edge, sharp cheekbones, lips that curved in permanent assessment, eyes the color of winter ice that cataloged every detail of Sera's appearance with the precision of someone identifying weaknesses. Her scent was complex, roses and something metallic underneath, something that made Sera's instincts twitch with unease even as she dropped into the required curtsy. "So," Morgana said, her voice carrying the cultured tones of someone who had never been denied anything. "You are the curiosity my son brought home, the broken omega with no scent. How fascinating." Sera kept her eyes down, maintaining proper omega posture despite the wrongness of it. Despite knowing she was not actually omega, but something the woman before her had tried very hard to eliminate. "Look at me, child." Sera obeyed, lifting her gaze. Morgana studied her face with unsettling intensity, looking for something, searching for recognition or resemblance or some sign that would reveal what Caspian had worked so hard to hide. "You have unusual eyes," Morgana observed. "Violet, not unheard of, but rare. Where did you say your family was from?" "I did not say, Your Majesty. I am an orphan. My past is unknown to me." "How convenient. And my son found you where? In some border pack gambling den?" Morgana's lips curved in something that was not quite a smile. "Caspian has always collected broken things, tries to fix them. A hero complex inherited from his father, may he rest. Though I always told him that some things are broken beyond repair. Best to discard them and find something functional." The casual dismissal should have stung. Sera had heard variations of it her entire life, but coming from this woman, from someone who had orchestrated the murder of thousands, the words carried different weight. Not insult. Threat. "Your Majesty is wise," Sera murmured. "Yes, I am." Morgana stood, moving with fluid grace to a side table where tea had been prepared. She poured 2 cups with elegant precision. "Tell me, child, what do you know of the Serpent Purge?" Sera's heart stuttered. Careful. Every word was a potential trap. "Only what everyone knows, Your Majesty, that dangerous bloodlines were eliminated for the safety of the realm." Dangerous. Morgana handed Sera a cup. The porcelain was so fine Sera could see shadows through it. "Yes, they were dangerous. Mind readers, future seers, creatures who could influence your thoughts and emotions without you even knowing. They had to be destroyed. Not out of cruelty, you understand. Out of necessity. One cannot build a stable kingdom on a foundation of magic that could collapse at any moment." "Of course, Your Majesty. And yet—" Morgana returned to her chair, sipping her own tea. "Sometimes I wonder if we were thorough enough. If perhaps some survived. Children, maybe, hidden away, their powers suppressed through desperate magic that might one day fail." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sera kept her expression neutral through sheer force of will. "I am certain Your Majesty's intelligence network would have found any survivors. One would think." Morgana's eyes never left Sera's face. "But magic is tricky, especially blood magic, the kind that requires significant sacrifice. A mother's sacrifice, for instance, could be quite powerful, enough to hide a child, make her appear as nothing, scentless, powerless, broken. She knows, or suspects, or is fishing. Sera could not tell which, and that uncertainty was terrifying. "I am sure I would not know anything about such things, Your Majesty. I am just an Omega." "Are you?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Then Morgana laughed, the sound brittle. "Forgive me. I sometimes let my paranoia get the better of me. Old habits from decades of court politics. You are right, of course. Just an Omega, a broken one at that. Hardly worth my concern." She set down her teacup with a decisive click. "You may go. Do try to stay out of trouble, child. The palace can be dangerous for those who do not understand its intricacies. Accidents happen, people disappear. It would be a shame if my son's new pet came to harm." Sera curtsied again, backing toward the door. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to get as far from Morgana as possible, but she maintained proper protocol until she was in the corridor with the door closed behind her. Then she ran, not far, just to an alcove near a window where she could press her back against cold stone and try to remember how to breathe. Her hands shook. The teacup would have shattered if she had been holding it any longer, Morgana knew, or suspected strongly enough that the distinction did not matter. "You survived." Elena's voice made Sera jump. The guard captain materialized from shadows, her expression grim. "That is more than many can say after a private audience with the Queen Dowager. What did she want?" "To evaluate whether I am a threat." "And her conclusion?" "I do not know. She either believes I am nothing or is pretending to believe it while planning my death. I cannot tell which is worse." Elena moved closer, her presence somehow reassuring despite the danger. "She is suspicious. That makes you dangerous by default. Stay close to Caspian. He is the only one in this palace with enough power to protect you from her." She paused. "The king asked me to give you this." She handed Sera a small key, silver, ornate, with serpent designs worked into the metal. "It opens a room in the East Tower. He said you would know when to use it." Before Sera could ask what that meant, Elena was gone, disappeared back into shadows like she had never been there at all. Sera stared at the key, feeling its weight, feeling the way her skin tingled where metal touched flesh. The seal recognized this key, recognized the magic worked into it. She found Caspian in his study, surrounded by documents and correspondence that apparently required royal attention. He looked up when she entered, those silver eyes assessing her state with uncomfortable accuracy. "My mother scared you." Not a question. Sera closed the door behind her. She knows, or suspects. She asked about the Serpent Purge, about survivors, about magic that could hide children. Of course she did. Caspian set down his pen. "Morgana is many things, but stupid is not among them. She has been watching you since you arrived, trying to determine if you are what I have been searching for all these years. And when she confirms her suspicions, she will try to kill you. Probably in a way that appears accidental, so I cannot retaliate without evidence." He stood, moving to a cabinet where he poured 2 glasses of amber liquid. "Which is why we are accelerating the timeline. The seal is going to break, soon, days at most. When it does, you will need to be somewhere protected, somewhere even my mother cannot reach." He handed her a glass. Sera had never tasted alcohol before. Garrett had not wasted resources on broken omegas. She sipped cautiously. It burned going down but left warmth in its wake. "The key Elena gave me, what does it open?" "A room my grandfather built when he was still prince, before he became paranoid, before he decided magic users were threats to be eliminated." Caspian drank his own glass in one swallow. "It is warded, reinforced, designed to contain powerful magic if necessary. When the seal breaks, you will go there. I will stand guard outside. No one gets in until you have control." "And if I cannot control it, if the power destroys me from the inside?" "Then I will fulfill my promise. I will let you consume me as penance for what I did to your family." He said it so calmly, as if offering his life was no more significant than offering tea. Sera set down her glass with shaking hands. "Why do you keep saying things like that? Why do you act as if your life has no value?" "Because for 15 years I have lived with the knowledge that I murdered innocent people, children, elders, men and women whose only crime was being born with certain gifts." His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Pain, old and deep and unhealed. "I was 14. I was terrified. But I still did it. I still raised that sword. I still watched them die. And no amount of justified fear erases that. So yes, if my death gives you peace, I will give it gladly." "That is not how justice works." "Is it not? You are the wronged party. You decide what justice looks like." Before Sera could respond, the door burst open. Dorian stumbled in, the king's beta, his face pale and his sense spiking with distress. "Your Majesty, we have a situation." Caspian was moving before Dorian finished speaking. "What kind of situation?" "The dungeons. Someone has been imprisoned there, an Omega. She was found in the old Moonwhisper territory, hiding in abandoned buildings, claims to be a survivor of the pack dissolution." Dorian's eyes flicked to Sera. "She says she is looking for her sister." The world tilted. Sister. Sera had no siblings. Garrett had told her she was alone, the last of whatever family she might have had. But Garrett had lied about many things. "Take me to her," Sera said. Not a request. The first time she had ever given an order. Caspian nodded to Dorian. "Bring her up, private interrogation room, and find out who ordered her arrest. I want names." The interrogation room was exactly what it sounded like. Stone walls, single table, chairs, no windows. The kind of space designed to break spirits through isolation and implication of violence. When they brought the Omega in, she was small, frightened, and so achingly familiar that Sera's breath caught. The girl was younger, 19 perhaps, but she had the same delicate bone structure, the same slight build, and when she looked up, the same violet eyes. "Sera?" The girl's voice broke. "Is it really you?" Sera moved without thinking, crossing the space, pulling the girl into her arms. The girl, her sister, her family, collapsed against her with sobs that shook her entire frame. And as Sera held her, breathed in her scent, which was jasmine and something sweeter, underneath the fear, the seal in Sera's chest cracked wider. "I looked for you," the girl gasped between sobs. "For years. Uncle Garrett said you died, said you were killed when the pack was attacked. But I did not believe him. I could not believe him, so I searched, and I found rumors. A scentless Omega in his pack. I knew it had to be you." Sera pulled back, studying her sister's face. "What is your name?" "Lyra. Mother named me Lyra." She touched Sera's cheek with trembling fingers. "You do not remember me. You were 5 when they took you away. I was only 2, too young to remember everything clearly. But Mother made me promise, made me swear I would find you someday, would tell you the truth."
"What truth?" "That you are not broken. That the seal was meant to protect you until you were strong enough to survive without it. That Mother and Father loved you so much they sacrificed everything to give you a chance." Lyra's eyes filled with tears again. "I am supposed to help you, supposed to guide you when the seal breaks. That is what Mother told me before she died." Sera looked at Caspian, who stood near the door with an expression she could not read. "You knew about this, about her. I suspected there might be another survivor, but I could not find her. She was well hidden." He moved closer. "Sera Moonwhisper, how did you evade detection for so long?" Lyra straightened, fear shifting to defiance. "I am actually Omega. No seal required. Low-level bloodline expression. I smell normal. Act normal. As long as I did not use any gifts, no one suspected. I have been searching for Sera for 3 years, pack to pack, territory to territory. When I heard rumors of the Alpha King winning a scentless Omega in a card game, I knew. I came here as quickly as I could." "And got yourself arrested." "I was breaking into the palace. What did you expect?" Lyra's chin lifted. "I would do worse to reach my sister." Caspian studied her for a long moment, then nodded to Dorian. "Release her. House her in the guest wing. Same level as Sera. Post guards for her protection." "Your Majesty, the Queen Dowager ordered the arrest. If we release her without approval, then my mother will be displeased. I will handle her displeasure. Release the girl." Dorian bowed and left. Lyra looked between Sera and Caspian, awareness dawning. "You are the one. The boy who was forced to execute our parents." "Yes." "Mother cursed you." "Yes." Lyra studied him with unsettling intensity for an Omega. "Good. You deserved it." Then she turned back to Sera. "The seal is breaking. I can feel it. You feel it too?" "Yes, it burns." "That is because you are near him, near your—" Lyra stopped, eyes widening. Oh no. Mother, what did you do?" "What?" Sera grabbed her sister's shoulders. "What is wrong?" "The curse. The prophecy. It was not just about forcing him to search for you." Lyra looked at Caspian with something like pity. "She bound you to him, made you fated mates. That is why the seal is breaking faster. That is why it burns when you are together. The mate bond is trying to complete itself, but the seal is in the way." The words made no sense. Fated mates. The thing of legends and romance. The idea that some wolves were destined for each other, their souls recognizing each other across distance and time. But those were rare. Happened maybe once in a generation. And they certainly did not happen between people who should hate each other. "That is impossible," Sera said. "Is it?" Lyra gestured to Caspian's chest. "The mark. Show her." Caspian unbuttoned his shirt without hesitation, revealing the serpent scar. In the light of the interrogation room, Sera could see it clearly. Not just a burn, a pattern. Magic worked into flesh. And as she looked at it, the seal in her chest burned in response. Recognition. Connection. "Fated mates share marks," Lyra explained. "When the bond is acknowledged, when it completes, the marks connect them, let them feel each other, find each other. Mother did not just curse him, she bound him to you, made it so he could never escape the consequences of what he did, because he would spend his life drawn to you, needing you, loving you, and you would have the power to either accept that love or destroy him with its rejection." Sera looked at Caspian, at the man who had murdered her parents, the Alpha King who had searched for her for 15 years, the male who made her skin burn and her heart race and her body respond in ways she did not understand. "Do you feel it?" she asked him. "The mate bond? Since the moment I touched you in that tavern." His voice was quiet, honest. "It snapped into place instantly. I have been fighting it every moment since because you do not feel it yet. The seal blocks your half. But when it breaks, I will feel it too." "Yes, and then you will have to choose. Accept the bond or reject it. Accept me or destroy me, just as your mother planned." Sera wanted to rage at the unfairness, at being manipulated even from beyond death, at having her choices constrained by magic she did not understand and could not control. But underneath the anger was something else. Relief, maybe. that the pull she felt toward Caspian was not weakness or stupidity, that it was fate, which at least came with the dignity of inevitability. "I need time," she said, "to think, to process." "Of course." Caspian rebuttoned his shirt. "Lyra will stay with you. She can answer questions I cannot. And when the seal breaks, she can help you survive what comes after." He left. Dorian followed. And Sera stood alone with the sister she did not remember, in a palace that wanted her dead, bound by magic to a man she should hate but could not quite manage to. "You care for him," Lyra observed, "despite everything." "I do not know what I feel." "Yes, you do. You are just afraid to admit it." Lyra took her hand. "Come, you should rest. The seal will break soon. Tonight, maybe. Tomorrow at latest. You need your strength." They returned to Sera's quarters. Lyra settled in as if she had always belonged there, chattering about her 3 years searching, about close calls and narrow escapes. Sera listened, grateful for the distraction, grateful for family even if she could not remember their shared history. As night fell, the burning intensified. Sera pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the seal fracturing beneath her skin, feeling power pressing against the barriers. Soon it would break through. Soon she would be whatever she had been meant to be before fear and love had locked it away. "Tell me about Mother," she said to Lyra as they sat by the fire. "I do not remember her clearly." "She was kind, strong, wise." Lyra smiled sadly. "She loved Father so much, loved us. When the soldiers came, when they realized they could not escape, she did not waste time on anger or grief. She used every moment she had left to protect us, to give us a chance." "The seal, how did she do it?" "Blood magic, life magic. She took years off her own existence and wove them into protection for you, made you invisible, made you nothing so you could survive to become everything." Lyra's hand found Sera's. "She told me that someday you would wake up, would remember, would have to choose between vengeance and peace. She hoped you would choose peace, but she understood if you could not." "What did she tell you about the curse, about binding me to Caspian?" "That some debts could only be paid through love, that the boy who killed her had been as much a victim as any of them, that he would carry guilt his entire life unless someone freed him from it, and that you, her daughter, were the only one who could make that choice." Lyra squeezed her hand. "She forgave him, Sera. Before she died, she looked at that terrified boy and forgave him, and she hoped you would too when the time came." Tears spilled down Sera's cheeks. "I do not know if I can." "You do not have to decide tonight. You just have to survive tonight." The seal broke at midnight. Sera felt it shatter, felt the barriers dissolve, felt 18 years of suppressed power flood through her system with the force of a tsunami. She screamed. The sound was not human, not entirely. It carried harmonics that made windows rattle and made wolves throughout the palace howl in response. Lyra grabbed her, dragged her from the room, through corridors that Sera barely recognized. Upstairs, more stairs, to a tower door that opened to the silver key. Inside, a room carved with protective runes, every surface covered in symbols meant to contain and control. Sera collapsed in the center. The power was too much, too vast. It was tearing her apart from the inside. Her eyes burned gold. Her skin rippled with scales that appeared and disappeared. Her mind expanded, suddenly able to hear thoughts from everyone in the palace, a cacophony of voices and emotions and needs that threatened to drown her consciousness entirely. Caspian was there. When had he arrived? He knelt before her, hands on her face, his scent wrapping around her like an anchor. "Look at me. Focus on me. Just me." She tried to narrow her awareness to just him, just those silver eyes, just that scent of winter pine and lightning. "The bond," he said urgently. "Let the bond complete. It will ground you, give you something to hold on to." "I cannot. I do not want this. I do not want to be bound to you." "I know, but you need it. Need something to tether you, or the power will consume you completely. Please, Sera, let me help you." She could feel it, the mate bond pulling at her, demanding acknowledgement. Her body knew what it wanted even if her mind resisted. And the power, the vast, terrible power, recognized the bond as salvation, as the one thing that could help her control what she was becoming. Sera made her choice, not because she forgave him, not because she loved him, but because she wanted to live, and living meant accepting help even from sources she did not trust. "Yes," she gasped. "Complete it." Caspian moved instantly. His mouth found her throat, teeth scraping over her pulse point. The traditional claiming bite. When his fangs sank in, the pain was sharp and bright and followed immediately by pleasure so intense Sera's back arched. The bond snapped into place completely. Suddenly she could feel him, his emotions, his guilt and hope and desperate need. His love. Gods, he loved her. Had loved her since the moment the bond revealed itself. Had spent 15 years in love with a ghost, with a memory, with a curse made flesh. And because the bond went both ways, he felt her confusion and fear and reluctant fascination, felt the way her body responded to his presence despite everything, felt the power inside her recognizing him as something precious, something to protect. The power calmed, not gone, but contained, woven into the bond itself, using the connection between them as a conduit and container. Sera could breathe again, could think, could see. Caspian pulled back, his mouth bloody, his eyes burning with emotion he no longer tried to hide. "Are you all right?" "I think so." Her voice sounded different, layered, alpha voice, command voice, the voice of someone who could make others obey without question. "The power, it is still there, but I can control it now." "Good. That is good." He stood, putting distance between them, though the bond pulled at the separation. "You should rest. Your body has been through trauma. You need to recover." "Wait." Sera grabbed his wrist. The touch sent electricity through the bond. "I can feel you. Everything you feel. Your guilt, your love, your certainty that I will reject you." "You should reject me." "Probably." She met his eyes. "But I do not want to. That is what terrifies me. I should hate you, should want you dead, but instead I just want—" She could not finish the sentence, could not admit what the bond was demanding. Caspian's control cracked. He pulled her up, pulled her against him, and kissed her with the kind of desperate intensity that came from 15 years of wanting something he believed he could never have. Sera responded without thinking, opening to him, pressing closer, the mate bond singing with completion and recognition in need. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Caspian's forehead rested against hers. "This changes nothing. You still have the right to destroy me. But I am asking you not to. Asking you to give me time to prove I am more than the worst thing I have ever done." "How much time?" "However long you need. Years if necessary. I will wait." Sera looked at him. At the man her mother had bound her to. At the killer and king and broken creature who loved her with the kind of totality that terrified and attracted in equal measure. "I will give you a chance," she said. "Not forgiveness, not yet, but a chance, and we will see where that leads." It was not acceptance. Not really, but it was not rejection either. And for Caspian, for a man who had expected nothing but hatred, it was more than he had dared hope for. Outside the tower room, dawn was breaking. And in the palace below, Morgana Nightshade felt the power shift and knew her worst suspicions had been confirmed. The Serpent Princess had awakened, and now the real game could begin. The palace woke to a new reality. Somewhere in the night, between the seal breaking and dawn arriving, word had spread. The scentless Omega was not Omega at all. She was Alpha, Serpent Alpha, and the Alpha King had claimed her as mate. Sera felt the whispers before she heard them. Her newly awakened powers included a kind of ambient awareness of emotions and thoughts nearby. Not full mind reading, not yet, but enough to sense the fear and speculation and barely concealed hostility that followed her through the corridors. Some wolves bowed their heads in automatic deference to her alpha presence. Others stared with open suspicion. A few looked at her with the kind of hatred reserved for things that should not exist. Her scent had emerged fully overnight. Jasmine and thunderstorms, Lyra had told her. Strong enough to make other alphas take notice. Strong enough that when she passed, wolves stopped and turned, drawn by the unusual combination. Sera was still learning to control the projection, still learning to exist as something other than invisible. Caspian had left the tower room before dawn, though the mate bond hummed with his continued presence somewhere in the palace. He was giving her space to adjust, to process, to decide whether the claiming bite had been acceptance or just survival instinct. Sera appreciated the distance even as part of her, The part connected to him through magic and fate wanted him close. Lyra brought breakfast, her expression troubled. The Queen Dowager has called an emergency council meeting, all high-ranking nobles and advisors. She is demanding answers about what happened last night, about why the palace wards detected a massive power surge, about why her son now bears a completed mate mark. She knows it was me. Everyone knows it was you. The question is what she plans to do about it. Lyra set the tray down, then moved to the window. There are guards outside your door. Elena posted them. For your protection, she said, but also to make sure you do not go anywhere unsupervised. The palace is dangerous right now. Sera touched the mark on her neck. Caspian's claiming bite had healed with supernatural speed, leaving a silver scar in the shape of a crescent moon. When she pressed her fingers to it, she could feel him through the bond. His tension, his anger at being summoned by his mother when he wanted to be here, his love, constant and overwhelming, that he tried to shield from her so she would not feel pressured. "I need to attend the council meeting," Sera said. "That is a terrible idea. Morgana will use it as an opportunity to attack you, politically if not physically." "Probably, but hiding suggests guilt, suggests I am ashamed of what I am. I will not give her that satisfaction." Sera stood, moving to the wardrobe where clothing had been provided. Not Omega dresses anymore. These were Alpha garments, tailored pants and fitted shirts, clothing designed for someone who might need to move quickly or fight. "Help me dress, and find Elena. I want her with me when I walk into that room." The council chamber was designed to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings, massive table carved from single piece of black marble, chairs that were nearly thrones, every surface polished until it reflected light like dark water. Around the table sat the most powerful wolves in the kingdom, dukes and duchesses, military commanders, the heads of ancient families whose bloodlines stretched back centuries. And at the head of this table, in a chair that matched Caspian's in everything but placement, sat Morgana Nightshade. The room fell silent when Sera entered. Every head turned, every eye assessed. Sera felt their evaluation like physical touch. Some saw threat, some saw opportunity. A few, the older ones who remembered the Serpent Purge, saw ghosts. Caspian stood from his chair at the opposite end of the table. The gesture drew attention to the mate mark on his neck, visible despite his formal attire. "Council members, allow me to introduce Sera Moonwhisper, my mate, Serpent Alpha, heir to the bloodlines you believed extinct." The pronouncement landed like a stone in still water, ripples of shock and anger and fear spreading outward. Duke Thornwood, who had been at the card game, stood abruptly. "Your Majesty, this is madness. The serpent bloodlines were eliminated for good reason. They were dangerous, unstable, a threat to the realm." "They were murdered," Sera said, her voice carrying the layered harmonics of Alpha Command. "For the crime of existing, for having powers that made others uncomfortable. Do not sanitize genocide by calling it necessary." Thornwood's face flushed. "You dare speak to me that way? I am Duke of the Eastern Territories. I have served this crown for 40 years. And I am the daughter of the Serpent Queen you helped murder. I think that gives me the right to correct your historical revisionism." Sera moved to stand beside Caspian, claiming her place at his side. The mate bond thrummed with his approval and support. Morgana watched this exchange with cold calculation. When she spoke, her voice was silk over steel. "No one here denies that the purge was brutal, tragic even, but it was decided by lawful authority based on legitimate concerns about magical threats. My son's grandfather, may he rest, made that choice to protect the realm." "Your son's grandfather was a paranoid tyrant who murdered thousands because a seer predicted his downfall." Sera met Morgana's ice-blue eyes without flinching. "And you, Your Majesty, were the architect of that purge. You provided the intelligence, planned the attacks, ensured every last serpent was hunted down and killed, including children, including my parents." The room erupted, voices raised in shock and denial and demands for explanation. But Sera kept her focus on Morgana, watching emotions flicker behind those cold eyes. Surprise, calculation, and underneath it all, fear. Caspian's hand found Sera's beneath the table. The touch steadied her, reminded her she was not alone in this confrontation. Morgana raised one hand, and silence fell instantly. Her Alpha Command was formidable, honed by decades of practice. "You make serious accusations, girl. Based on what evidence? The paranoid imaginings of a bloodline known for mental instability? Based on documents in the royal archives, letters bearing your seal, orders you gave to commanders in the field, reports you compiled on serpent locations and capabilities. Sera pulled folded parchment from inside her jacket, papers she had spent the past 3 days copying from the restricted sections Caspian had shown her. Shall I read them aloud? Or would you prefer to maintain the fiction that you were an innocent bystander to atrocity? Morgana's expression did not change, but her scent spiked. Roses and metal, sharp with anger, barely controlled. Those documents are classified. Accessing them without authorization is treason. I gave her authorization, Caspian said quietly. She is my mate. She has every right to know the truth about what was done to her family. Your mate? Morgana's lips curved in something that was not a smile. How convenient. How romantic. The boy who executed her parents is now bound to her through fate. Tell me, son, when did you plan to reveal this to the council? Or were you hoping to present us with accomplished fact and expect our acceptance? I am Alpha King. I do not require council approval for my choice of mate. No, but you do require their loyalty, their support, and binding yourself to a serpent will cost you both. Morgana stood, her presence filling the room despite her smaller stature. The serpent bloodlines were eliminated because they were a threat. This girl, regardless of her tragic history, carries that same threat. She can read minds, influence thoughts, see futures that may or may not come to pass. How can any of us trust our own decisions if she has access to our minds? How can the kingdom function if its queen has the power to puppet its people? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. Sera felt their fear crystallizing into consensus. Morgana was good at this, excellent at manipulating emotions and concerns into weapons. I would never use my powers that way, Sera said. So you claim, but power corrupts. We have seen it countless times. You may have noble intentions now, but what about in 5 years? 10? When you have grown comfortable with your abilities and your position? When you decide the council is moving too slowly or in the wrong direction? How easy would it be to simply adjust our thinking, to make us agree with whatever you want? By that logic, no one with power should be trusted, including you, Your Majesty. Sera took a step forward. You have wielded political power for decades, have used it to orchestrate purges and manipulate kings and eliminate threats to your position. How is that different from what you accuse me of potentially doing? I am not a magical abomination. The words hung in the air. Abomination. The old slur used against serpent bloodlines, the justification for their elimination. Sera felt Caspian tense beside her, felt his anger through the bond. But she placed a hand on his arm, staying him. You are right, Sera said calmly. You are not magical. You are simply cruel. And cruelty without magic is somehow worse because you choose it consciously. You chose to murder children, chose to hunt down families, chose to eliminate an entire people because they made you feel inferior. At least I can blame magic for my nature. What is your excuse? Morgana's control slipped. Her eyes flashed, and for just a moment, Sera caught something. A flicker of power. Magical power, serpent power, corrupted and wrong, but unmistakably present. The revelation hit like lightning. Morgana was not just the architect of the purge. She was a hybrid, had serpent blood in her own veins, diluted perhaps, corrupted certainly, but present. You have it too, Sera breathed. The bloodline. That is why you know so much about it, why you fear it. You have serpent blood and it has driven you mad. Morgana moved faster than should have been possible for someone her age. She was across the table, hand wrapped around Sera's throat, lifting her off the ground with strength no normal alpha should possess. You know nothing, child. Nothing about what I have sacrificed, what I have endured, what I have become to protect this kingdom from the chaos magic brings. Caspian roared, alpha command that made everyone in the room drop to their knees in submission. Everyone except Morgana, who held Sera suspended, her grip crushing. Release her, now! Or what? You will execute me as you did her parents? I think not. I am your mother. You do not have the strength to hurt me. Try me. The temperature in the room plummeted. Power radiated from Caspian in waves that made the air itself heavy. But before violence could erupt, Sera acted. She reached into Morgana's mind, past the defenses, past the walls, straight into the corrupted magic she could feel festering there. What she found made her gasp. Morgana had serpent blood, not recent, ancestral, from a union generations back that should have diluted to nothing. But Morgana had used dark magic to amplify it, had stolen power from dying serpents during the Purge, absorbed their magic through blood rituals, had turned herself into something twisted. Neither fully serpent nor fully normal alpha, but a corruption of both. And it was killing her. The stolen power fought her native biology, tore at her from inside, drove her slowly, inexorably mad. Sera pulled back from Morgana's mind, gasping. "Let me help you. The corruption, the stolen magic, it is destroying you. I can see it. I can fix it. I do not want your help. I want you dead, just like I wanted your mother dead, your father, every last one of your cursed bloodline." "Why? Because you could not accept that your own blood made you what you feared most?" Morgana's grip tightened. Black spots danced in Sera's vision. Through the mate bond, she felt Caspian's panic, his rage, felt him preparing to attack his own mother to save her. But then Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "Aunt Morgana, let her go!" Everyone turned. Lyra stood in the doorway, flanked by Elena and a squad of guards. But it was not the guards that made Morgana pause. It was the parchment Lyra held, old, yellowed, bearing a seal that made Morgana's face go pale. "A letter," Lyra said, walking into the room with surprising confidence for an Omega facing a room of dominant alphas. "Written by your mother, to her sister, explaining how your father was descended from serpent nobility, how you carried that blood, how she begged her sister to protect you during the early purges when serpent families were being targeted by the old king's grandfather." She set the letter on the table. "I found it in the archives, in a section sealed by your own order. How many people did you kill to hide this secret? How many innocents died so no one would know that the Queen Dowager herself carried the blood she claimed to despise?" Morgana released Sera. Sera collapsed, gasping, hand to her bruised throat. Caspian was there instantly, supporting her, his touch gentle despite the fury radiating through the bond. The council members were standing now, staring at Morgana with a mixture of shock and betrayal. Duke Thornwood's voice shook. "Is this true? You have serpent blood? You orchestrated the purge of your own people?" "They were not my people." Morgana's voice was hollow. "I was barely related. Distant ancestry. Nothing significant. But the old king's paranoia did not distinguish between powerful serpents and those with mere traces. He would have killed me if he knew. So I gave him other targets. Convinced him the real threats were the full-blooded families. Helped him eliminate them so he would not look at me." "And the power you stole from them?" Sera asked, her voice rough from the choking. "The blood rituals? What was that about?" "Survival. I took their magic before it died with them. Tried to stabilize my own bloodline. Thought if I controlled it, mastered it, I could become strong enough that no one would dare threaten me again." Morgana laughed bitterly. "Instead, it poisoned me, drove me toward madness. I have spent 30 years fighting the corruption, failing, knowing that eventually it will consume me." She looked at Sera with something that might have been regret, or might just have been weariness. "You could have been my salvation, pure serpent blood, uncorrupted. If I had known you existed, I would have kept you alive, used you to cleanse what I have become. But you were hidden, and then he found you first." She gestured at Caspian. "My fool of a son who wasted 15 years on guilt and prophecy and desperate searches for redemption." "I found her," Caspian said coldly. "I claimed her as mate, and now she stands under the protection of the Alpha King. If you touch her again, mother or not, I will execute you for treason and attempted murder of the Queen." Queen. The word hung in the air. Sera was not queen, had not been crowned. But as Caspian's mate, as a claimed alpha in her own right, she would be expected to take that title. The council members looked between them, political calculations playing out in seconds. Morgana had just admitted to orchestrating genocide to hide her own bloodline, had admitted to using dark magic and blood rituals. Any one of those revelations would be enough to strip her of title and possibly her life. Combined, they were damning. Baron Ravenmere was the first to move. He bowed to Sera, deep and formal. "Your Majesty, the Ravenmere family acknowledges your claim. We stand with the Alpha King and his mate." One by one, other council members followed, some more reluctantly than others, but all recognizing that the power balance had shifted irrevocably. Morgana stood alone, her support crumbling. "I will retire to my estates," Morgana said finally, "voluntarily. No trial, no public execution, just exile. That is the deal I offer." "No." Sera's voice was stronger now, despite her bruised throat. "You murdered thousands. You stole magic through blood ritual. You nearly killed me in front of the entire council. You do not get to retire peacefully." "Then what do you propose? Public execution? Making me a martyr? Giving those who fear serpent power a reason to rally against you?" Sera looked at Caspian through the mate bond, showing him what she had seen in Morgana's mind. The corruption, the madness, the slow death that awaited her if nothing changed. Caspian's anger warred with something else. Pity, perhaps, or simply the exhaustion that came from carrying too much anger for too long. He nodded permission. Whatever Sera decided, he would support. "I will heal you," Sera said to Morgana. "Remove the corruption, cleanse the stolen magic, return you to what you were before you destroyed yourself trying to destroy others. But in exchange, you will confess, publicly, every crime, every manipulation, every death you caused. You will tell the truth and let history judge you. And then you will live with that judgment for whatever years remain to you." "Why would you heal me after everything I have done?" "Because my mother taught me, even in her final moments, that vengeance solves nothing, that the cycle of violence only ends when someone chooses mercy." Sera's eyes met Morgana's. "I am choosing mercy, not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to become what you are, refuse to let hatred corrupt me the way power corrupted you." The council chamber was silent. Then Lady Ashcroft, the female alpha who had been at the card game, spoke. "The girl has more honor than any of us, including you, Morgana. I suggest you accept her offer before she reconsiders." Morgana looked around the room, at the council members who had once followed her lead, at her son who watched her with more pity than love, at the girl she had tried to kill who now offered salvation. Finally, she nodded. "Very well, I accept." The healing took 3 days. Sera worked in the warded tower room, using powers she barely understood to unravel decades of corruption and dark magic. Morgana screamed, convulsed, vomited black blood that hissed when it touched stone. But slowly, the corruption dissolved. The stolen power released back into whatever afterlife waited for murdered serpents. And what remained was just a woman, older than she appeared, weaker than she had been, but sane again, clear-headed for the first time in 30 years. When it was done, Morgana looked at Sera with clear eyes. "I still do not regret the purge itself. I still believe the kingdom was better off without powerful serpents influencing politics and war. But I regret the methods, the children especially. They were innocent. They deserved better." It was not the apology Sera wanted, but it was honest, and honesty was worth more than pretty lies. True to her word, Morgana confessed publicly. Every crime, every manipulation, the blood rituals, the murders, the 30 years of corruption and madness hidden behind political acumen, the confession took hours. When it was finished, the kingdom knew the truth about the Serpent Purge and the woman who had orchestrated it. The council voted. Morgana would be stripped of title and lands, would be exiled to a distant territory under guard. She would live, but without power, without influence, without the control she had wielded for so long. For a woman like Morgana, it was perhaps a fate worse than death. As guards led her away, she stopped beside Sera. "Your mother would be proud of you. She always believed in mercy, in hope. I thought her weak for it, but perhaps she was stronger than any of us." Then she was gone, and with her went the last shadow of the old regime. That night, Sera stood on the balcony outside her chambers, looking at the city spread below. Lights flickered in windows, people going about their lives, unaware of how close the kingdom had come to war, to chaos, to everything collapsing under the weight of old secrets and older sins. Caspian joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. The mate bond hummed with contentment and relief and bone-deep exhaustion. "You could have killed her. No one would have blamed you." "I know, but killing her would not have brought my parents back, would not have healed anything. I need to be better than the cycle of vengeance, need to prove that Serpent Alphas can be trusted with power." Sera leaned back against him, letting his warmth surround her. Besides, living with the knowledge of what she did, living with the loss of everything she built, that is punishment enough. You are wise beyond your years. I am traumatized and making the best choices I can with limited information. There is a difference. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. The mate bond. The claiming. I did not choose it freely. I was dying from power overload. I needed an anchor. I know. But I'm choosing it now. Choosing you. Not because fate demands it. Not because I need you to survive, but because I want to. Because despite everything, I think we could build something good together. Caspian's expression cracked. Emotion flooding through so fast she felt it like a physical impact. Relief, joy, love so intense it bordered on pain. Are you certain? You do not have to decide now. You can take years if you need them. I am certain. Not about everything. Not about how to be queen or how to wield power or how to heal a kingdom broken by genocide and lies. But I am certain about you. About us. She rose on her toes, kissing him. Ask me. Ask you what? To marry you. Properly. Not just mate bond acknowledgement, but actual marriage. Coronation. Making this official in every way possible. Caspian smiled. The first real smile she had seen from him. It transformed his face from cold perfection into something warm. Human. Beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with genetics. Sera Moonwhisper, Serpent Alpha, heir to bloodlines I helped destroy. Will you marry me? Will you be my queen? Will you help me build a kingdom worth inheriting? Yes, to all of it, yes. He kissed her properly then. Not the desperate claiming kiss from the tower, not the frantic connection born of crisis, but slow and deep and full of promise, the kind of kiss that spoke of years ahead, of partnership, of love that had been earned rather than simply fated. The coronation took place 6 weeks later. Enough time for preparations, for nobles to arrive from distant territories, for the kingdom to adjust to the reality of a serpent queen. There was resistance, of course, protests, a few assassination attempts that Elena and her guards stopped before they got close. But slowly, steadily, people adapted. Sera wore a gown of silver and deep purple, colors of both the nightshade and Moonwhisper lines. The crown they placed on her head was new, commissioned specifically for her. 7 serpents coiled around a crescent moon, diamonds worked into scales that caught light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. Caspian crowned her himself, his hands steady, his eyes full of love that no longer needed to hide behind duty. I present to you Queen Sera Nightshade, first of her name, Serpent Alpha, protector of the realm, my mate and equal in all things. The crowd's response was mixed. Cheers and applause from some, stony silence from others. But it was acceptance nonetheless, recognition that the world had changed and they would have to change with it. Lyra stood beside the throne wearing omega formal dress, her own crown marking her as princess and heir should Sera and Caspian produce no children. Dorian stood on her other side, the beta having appointed himself her personal guard after the council chamber incident. The two had grown close over the weeks, not mates, but something genuine. Sera approved. Elena commanded the royal guard, now sworn directly to Sera as well as Caspian. A doubled oath that made her possibly the most powerful non-royal in the kingdom. She wore her new position with grim satisfaction. The celebration lasted 3 days. Feasting, dancing, tournaments. The kingdom throwing itself into revelry with the desperate relief of people who had narrowly avoided catastrophe. Sera participated in what was required, but found herself exhausted by the constant scrutiny and performance. On the 4th night, when finally they had privacy, Sera and Caspian retreated to their shared chambers, not the separate rooms they had maintained during the engagement period, but a suite designed for both, with a bed large enough for 2 alphas who needed space but wanted proximity. "Are you happy?" Caspian asked as they prepared for sleep. "Truly?" Sera considered the question. Was she happy? She had lost 18 years to suppression and lies, had learned her parents were murdered by the man she now loved, had been forced to navigate palace politics while learning to control power that could destroy her if she lost focus, had become queen of a kingdom that feared her while trying to prove she could be trusted. But she had also found her sister, had found her mate, had power and position, and the opportunity to change a world that needed changing, had survived when so many others had not, had chosen mercy over vengeance, and found that choice freeing rather than limiting. "I am not unhappy," she said finally. "I am working toward happy, building it, one choice at a time." That is a good answer. Is it what you wanted to hear? No, but it is honest, and honesty is worth more than comfortable lies. They lay together in the darkness, the mate bond a constant warmth between them, not intrusive but present, a reminder that they were no longer alone, that they had chosen each other despite every reason not to, that fate and prophecy had conspired to bring them together, but what they built from that foundation was their own choice. "Tell me about the future you see," Caspian said. "Your serpent gifts, the visions, what do they show you?" "They are not clear, not prophecy like you are thinking, more like possibilities, branches that could be taken depending on choices made." Sera turned to face him in the darkness. "But I see us, years from now, still together, still building. There are children, 2, maybe 3. The kingdom is changing, slowly, imperfectly, but changing. And we are tired and scared and often uncertain, but we are happy as people like us can be." People like us? Broken people who found each other, who chose to heal together rather than destroy each other. She kissed him softly. "That is the future I see, the one I am choosing to believe in." "Then that is the future we will build." They made love that night, not the frantic claiming of the tower or the desperate connection of crisis, but something slower, more intentional, learning each other's bodies and preferences, discovering that mate bonds enhanced physical pleasure, but real connection came from trust and vulnerability. Afterward, wrapped in each other, Sera felt the last piece of the seal dissolve, the final fragment of suppression magic that her mother had woven into her very bones. It hurt, this last breaking. But it was good pain, the pain of a door opening rather than closing, the pain of becoming rather than being diminished. "I can feel everything now," she whispered. "Every wolf in the palace, their emotions, their thoughts if I focus. It is overwhelming." "Do you need me to call for help, for healers?" "No. I need you to just be here, to be my anchor." She pressed against him. That is what mates do. They anchor each other when the world becomes too much. So Caspian held her through the night while she learned to filter the psychic noise, learned to distinguish between her own emotions and those bleeding through from others, learned to be Serpent Alpha with all the power and responsibility that entailed. By morning, she had control again. And with that control came certainty. She was no longer the broken Omega hiding in corners, no longer the frightened girl who had survived by being nothing. She was Queen Sera Nightshade, Serpent Alpha, mate to the Alpha King, and she would spend her reign proving that power could be used for healing rather than harm, for building rather than destroying, for mercy rather than vengeance. 3 months after the coronation, Sera stood before the council with a proposal. "I want to search for other serpent survivors. I know there must be some, people like my sister who flew under detection, who hid their gifts, who survived by being invisible. I want to find them, offer them sanctuary, give them the choice my mother never had, safety or exile, but not death, never again death simply for existing." The council debated, argued, worried about the political ramifications of actively seeking out serpents when half the kingdom still feared them. But in the end, with Caspian's support and Sera's gentle but firm insistence, they agreed. The search began, slowly, carefully, messages sent to remote territories, promises of amnesty, guarantees of protection. In the first year, they found 3 survivors. In the second year, 7 more. Small numbers, tragic in their scarcity. But each one was a life saved, a bloodline preserved, a choice offered. They built a sanctuary in the old Moonwhisper territory. Not a prison, but a community where serpents could live without fear, where they could practice their gifts openly, where children could grow up knowing what they were without shame or suppression. Sera visited often, teaching what she had learned, learning from those whose gifts differed from her own. In the 3rd year of Sera's reign, Lyra married Dorian in a ceremony that celebrated Omega-Beta bonds and challenged traditional expectations about who could love whom.
Sera stood as witness, crying happy tears, grateful her sister had found someone who treasured her. In the 5th year, Sera gave birth, a daughter, perfect and screaming and bearing heterochromatic eyes, one silver like her father, one gold like her mother, serpent and nightshade both, carrying the weight and promise of 2 bloodlines trying to reconcile. They named her Seraphine, after Sera's mother, after the queen who had chosen sacrifice over survival, who had believed in mercy even when faced with the blade, who had cursed and blessed in the same breath, creating a future she would never see but trusted would be better than the past she left behind. Caspian held his daughter with the kind of terrified gentleness that came from knowing exactly how fragile life was, how easily it could be destroyed by those with power and poor judgment. "I will not let anyone hurt her," he whispered. "I will not let her suffer what you suffered." "I know. We both will protect her, together." Sera leaned against him, exhausted from labor, but filled with fierce love for this small creature they had created. She will grow up knowing she is wanted, knowing she is powerful, knowing her heritage is something to be proud of rather than hidden. That is what we give her, what we give all the children who come after, a better world than the one we inherited. That is a heavy burden, yes, but we carry it together. Standing in their chambers, holding their daughter, bound by magic and choice, Sera and Caspian looked toward a future that was uncertain but hopeful. A future where serpent queens could rule without fear, where mercy was strength rather than weakness, where love could grow even in soil poisoned by old hatreds. It was not a perfect future. There would be setbacks, resistance, moments when old prejudices resurfaced and had to be fought again. But it was a future worth fighting for, worth building, worth believing in. And in that belief, in that choice to hope despite everything, Sera finally found what had been stolen from her 18 years ago in fire and blood and desperate magic. She found herself. Not the broken Omega hiding in corners, not the Serpent Princess defined by tragedy, but Sera Nightshade, Queen, Alpha, Mate, Mother, Survivor. And she was enough, exactly as she was, exactly as she chose to be. The world had tried to destroy her, had locked away her power, had murdered her family, had made her invisible. But she had survived, had grown, had chosen love over hate, had built a crown from the ashes of genocide and worn it with the knowledge that crowns were earned through choices, not simply inherited through blood. And when future historians wrote of this time, when they chronicled the return of the serpent bloodlines and the healing of old wounds, they would remember this. Not the violence, not the fear, but the choice. The choice to break cycles rather than perpetuate them, to build rather than destroy, to love rather than hate. The choice that had transformed a broken Omega into a serpent queen, and in doing so had saved a kingdom from itself. The end.